Excellent. It's wonderful to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Great to meet you too.
You bet. So, the one thing, entering a new year, one of the biggest things that happened in our lifetime is going through this pandemic. And there were so many things that changed about our lives and our world collectively. How many waves from that time period do you still feel in your work and in your life that happened as a result of that COVID pandemic?
I think everything. It just impacted every aspect of life, how we show up as a people, how we communicate, right? Globally. Of course, the internet was already there, social media was already there, but I'm seeing people, as well as myself, interact with it very, very differently. Um, I just feel like it changed the entire vibe of life itself.
So, did you see an uptick in what you're doing? Did you see uh, more clients?
Oh yes, absolutely. Because I deal with spirituality, and so
Yep.
everybody's trying to understand the meaning and the purpose of all of this and how it fits within the scope of their life and how they can navigate this journey because it turns so many things upside down. So job loss was a major situation there. And with that job loss, it wasn't just about finances. Let me say that too.
Sure.
It was a lot about people starting to say, you know what, I want to do this differently, right? I want to go on the path of my destiny. So, being a spiritual coach and working with African traditions, we're all about like destiny orientation and things like that. That being said, most people equate destiny with an occupation or job, which it is not. However, I did see so many more people just wanting more meaning and purpose in who they are and how they show up and where they show up. So that was huge for us. It still is huge for us with people coming to us seeking out understanding deeper meaning of who they are and what they're meant to do.
So, speaking of the deeper meaning, as a spiritualist and a coach, did you find some existential crossroad that you crossed at that point, something that you didn't realize that was as a result of living through that time period?
I wouldn't say something that I didn't realize. I think it pushed me to really focus more so on the work that I was doing
Yeah.
as far as a spiritual coach and spiritualist and so forth. So it's always spirituality just has always been a part of who I am. I was still actually in the workforce when I transitioned into what I do now. Currently, I'm full time in my business. However, prior to that, I was doing the business and it was kind of a side hustle. I took it seriously, but not seriously enough. And when the pandemic hit, it really sparked within me like, okay, what direction am I going in? What should I be doing? And it made me ramp up my efforts in my business.
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do with your business. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of grade school kids, 10 and 11-year-olds. It's career day, and one of the kids in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer him?
So it will probably be a little bit more complicated to express that to someone that young, but ultimately I am a spiritual coach and a spiritualist. What that looks like is I help people navigate or go through their journey and understand who they are, what they're meant to be doing. I help them to transition through different challenges that they're having, and we're about every aspect of life, even though it's spirituality. I work with African traditions. So, what that looks like is that we are focused on any and every challenge that you have. Like, there's nothing too small, there's nothing too great that you can come and seek out services for. So, for somebody, wanting to really, really understand that dynamic, I'm going to put it in the context of divination, which ultimately is a spiritual reading. So, getting insight, deeper insight from the spiritual realm beyond what we typically ascertain on our own. It's not that we can't, but so many people are so clouded, right? So they don't have access to their intuition in the way that they should have access to it. Even so, sometimes we can be biased because we want things to go our way. So I put that in within that context of definitely helping people to understand who they are, where they're going, the challenges that they're dealing with, helping them find a way out, but also empowering them. right? Giving them the tools that they need to shape their journey into the direction they wanted to go in.
It's
I hope
interesting.
that, yes. Go
It's
ahead.
it's interesting because so many of us don't have levels of clairvoyant or intuition to see things because there is the destiny. There are meanings behind what we do and who we are. So I'm curious, how did you get to this point where you were intuitive enough to tap into the spirituality and lead people to that place to understand their existence and where they're at? Because it's the ultimate question of our placement on this planet. Like, what are we doing? What is this? And with you and your knowledge base and your spirituality, you're helping people get there. How did this happen?
So, first, let me say this: everybody is intuitively inclined. It's just that they're not connected to their intuition. And for me, that's just something that has always been a part of me. It's just been natural since I was a very young girl. I've had the clairvoyance. I understood it to a certain degree, definitely not to the level I understand it at now. But I was able to connect with and communicate with spirit. I spent a lot of time in my head. I still do. So I communicate with those forces, and it's not anything odd or strange to me, right? Where we are collectively as a society is that everything is about capitalism. So you're taught school in and of itself is a capitalistic tool, right? So it's all about training people to work to get a job. And so the instruction there is always going to be based on seeing things from a very logical perspective. You're not taught to tap into that internal part of you. And from an early age, I know when I was young, the thing was you asked a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? And that always was expected to be followed by something like a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, etc. Right? An occupation. If a young child had said, I want to be a psychic or a tarot reader when I grow up, they probably would have been chastised for the most part, living in predominant Western society. So we're not again taught those things. And right now, my goal is like getting people back to that, getting them to understanding like there's deeper meaning. It's so much more
Yeah,
than working a job.
yeah. So let me ask you this. What did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream for your life?
So I oscillated between a lawyer and a teacher
Okay.
during that time.
Okay. So talk to me a little bit about inspirations. Who's been or kind of a bedrock in your life that's allowed you to step into this role and have your own business full time? How did this happen?
So I say from a bedrock or a support perspective, that would have been my husband. That being said, he doesn't fully understand or kind of vibe with me on the journey of spirituality. He's a very spiritual person. However, he doesn't practice what I practice from, the African traditional perspective. He's been my bedrock in encouraging me to go into entrepreneurship. And I have to say too, like when I first started my business, I was actually focused on career business and financial coaching because I have that background as well. So it was a little bit different when I wanted to transition into spirituality. He was supportive, but definitely concerned, especially because what I do is not mainstream. So, we've had those conversations. To be honest with you, otherwise, there weren't any forces in my life that encouraged it. They don't encourage my spiritual journey. It's not like I'm ostracized by my family and friends by any means. They're still there for me, but they don't necessarily, for the most part, believe in what I believe in spiritually.
So let me ask you this. If you can meet anybody out there that's in the realm of spirituality or coaching or otherwise that you find inspirational, that you could hang out with, ask some questions, and that would help you on your journey, who would that be?
Not to sound conceited, but I don't have anyone that comes to mind.
Okay. Yeah. No, I totally get it. So let me ask you this. How do you balance all of this out? You're delving into deep things with people, helping them get to a better place, giving them some kind of blueprint to a meaning of their lives. but you're a human being that has to develop and evolve yourself. How do you balance that out? What do you look forward to every day that makes you be the best that you can be?
Communicating with my spiritual team. That's been a part of my life since a very early age. So that's what I get up and do. I do ritual work, the same things that I show people to do and encourage other people to do. That is absolutely a part of my daily routine.
So I'm curious for anyone out there that, I know personally for me, and I've talked to mediums or people that can see the other side where I don't want to bother the other side. There's a part of me that's like, why do I need to know this? Why can't I pick this up on my own? All of those human thoughts and questions. What would you say to people to talk to you, to seek more? What would you tell somebody that's on that line of trying to figure out their destiny and their lives that's not quite there, that needs that extra push?
I would definitely say to understand that these forces are here to support us. Okay, for your spiritual team, the guys that are with you, it's not much different than having family and friends right here in the earth. So this is just an extension of that. That being said, definitely there are evil forces, and I don't encourage people to just go into this blindsided and just, I'm gonna go and connect with these spirits and not having a deeper understanding of what you're doing and who you're connecting with. Because I've had to deal with so many issues like that where people they go online and they read stuff or they read a book and somebody told them this or that, so they want to connect with a specific spirit because they think that spirit is going to bring them something in particular. And so they start to connect with those forces and they're not really connecting with that spirit because they don't understand the energetic pattern of the spirit that they're actually trying to connect with. And so they start to deal with what the Western world would call demonic forces, evil forces, or what have you, and they begin to wreak havoc in those individuals' lives. So I would say, the same way, there is a plane that basically mirrors what we're dealing with here. So you absolutely have those benevolent forces that are working with you, but there are also the evil forces. So understand the same way you can tap into the support that you need right here from your parents, your grandparents, your family, your friends, other, members of your family or what have you. You can do that when you connect with your ancestors, when you connect with the orishas, with your natural forces. Likewise, you can connect with some evil forces here. So I would say, educate yourself because I'm all about education. Understand what it is, right? Before you travel down that path. And at the end of the day, if it isn't for you, it's not for you. Because to be honest with you, I would never try to convince somebody
Yeah,
of that. That's
gotcha.
not something I would do.
So I'm curious in the realm of conduits to the other side, we've made the Ouija board into a game. How dangerous is the Ouija board? What's your thought on it?
So I don't deal with the Ouija board. I've been told it's nothing but evil. I've never messed with it. It's not part of my practice. I don't go near it, and I don't suggest somebody who is serious about their spiritual health and well-being to do so either.
I've never heard anything good about it. I've only heard weird stories about it. I mean, I've tried it myself. I, at one point, was trying to show my kids because I didn't want them to do it on their own. And I started doing it on my own. And at one point, I there was a ship that I was on and somebody was kind of crying out and I just pulled my hands away and I said, I'm out. I'm not ever doing this again. And I did some research on it and they talk about that kind of being a middle ground. There's a potential that you can bring things that are nefarious into this realm.
100%. And
Yeah.
so that's why I don't encourage
Yeah.
people to deal with that.
Right. And that's why I asked, because it's just reinforcing, I think, what I already know myself is something that's not prudent. So I'm curious, you have people that are coming to you for your advice, for your wisdom, as a coach in spirituality, but it's a two-way avenue. You're going to learn stuff from your clients and they're learning stuff, obviously. What have been some revelations over the years that you've learned from clients, people that you've worked with, that you didn't expect? Maybe something that had come along the way.
That's an interesting question. Um, I just think in general, I'm going to speak in general because I don't want to, cross the line of privacy and things like that
Sure,
here.
sure.
But in general, about the human experience, that we're all going through the same thing, right? Because sometimes we feel like we're isolated in what we're dealing with. And to be honest, like I am constantly seeing the same thing over and over, just in a different package, right? From person to person. And so every time I do, it makes me feel like, there's a community in what I'm going through in my life experience, the community overall. And I think people don't realize this because a lot of times people do come to me feeling so isolated, feeling like they're the only ones that's dealing with this trauma, or that, oftentimes they feel like they're a bad person because they're dealing with certain challenges in their life. And I get an opportunity to share that, to say, hey, I see this all the time. So, like, there's nothing to be ashamed of, it's nothing to be embarrassed of. Because of what I do, whether a person approaches me or not about having certain things that they would consider to be embarrassing or not, if they're getting a reading, for instance, it may come out, right? Even if they didn't say that from the door. And so oftentimes they get a little bit coy, right? Because they're experiencing certain things. And I'm always like at ease because you don't understand. We all go through these different things in our lives, and it's all about us learning lessons and helping us to transcend and to go to that next level. There's nothing wrong with it as long as you're trying to do something about it.
So in these modern times, we're going through heavy things. We got a new administration that's come in. We see all these calamities and all these different things, and there's wonderful things as well. But overall, in this new year, are you hopeful for where we're going as human beings? Where does that hope in your work and with what you do, does it waver? How do you feel right now?
I'm on the line, right? So I'm hopeful at the prospects and the potential of where we can go and where the universal energies are absolutely taking us, because we're in a major time of transformation, from an astrological perspective, right? So we're getting back to the space where we are digging into humanitarianism more so than where we've been before. So it's about kind of equaling the playing field. That being said, any type of transformation like that is going to come with, revolution,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So there's no escaping that part. And obviously, revolution is not always pretty. It can require a lot of things happening. It's going to come with so many different upheavals that are going to disrupt the status quo. And that disruption is not going to feel good all the time. It's not going to look good all the time. So that's why, I'm in between, because I want to see that transformation. I want to see us back on equal footing, but I know it's going to come with some challenges along the way.
I've noticed just in very short spans that we've entered this new realm and administration that things are different right now. People aren't they're not leaning back and just saying, okay, all right, if it's not right. I see a lot of courageous human beings right now that may not have been that way prior to, say, the pandemic or any of the things that we've seen that have transpired over the, last 6 years or so.
Yeah, that's part of that astrological energy. So right now, we have Pluto transitioning through Aquarius. Aquarius is that really revolutionary, bold energy that challenges the status quo. Aquarius, loves to see society advance, but understands that you have to have that energy of innovation and revolution. So people are bolder. They will be bolder. It's only going to get deeper as we move forward. And that's what we need. We need that pushback. That's the only way we'll change. If we don't have pushback, we're just going to maintain the status quo.
So, in our plight as human beings, I'm curious. I got a question for you. Have you ever read the book, The Chariots of the Gods?
I have not.
It is about basically the human race early on. There was a race of aliens that came from the future, and basically like they're helping us not annihilate ourselves and eliminate things, which is kind of the idea of like the pyramids and a lot of these ancient mysteries of hieroglyphics and things that we can't decode and understand how early civilizations did. So my question to you is this: do you believe there's something else that exists out there that is benevolent enough to look at us humans to save ourselves from that level of annihilation and evolve to another place? Do you believe that level exists?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe it exists. I've seen it, working in my own life. I've seen it working collectively. It can get scary because so many things are happening in society. So you do see, like, you question a lot of things, right? Even myself, even knowing what I know, I'm constantly questioning. Well, why is it like this? Why are certain people suffering so much and you can't see what they did wrong, right, from the surface as far as why they're going through certain things, and then why are other people, you know, prospering in certain regards, because it's not their entire life, but there are certain aspects of their life that is really, really beautiful. Yet these individuals don't seem to really care about humanity. So definitely there is a source energy, a creative force. You can call it God, you can call it the devil if you want to. There's this force that is definitely helping to redirect us, but we also have free will in that. And that's the caveat, right? So
Yeah.
it's up to us what we do as we move along that journey.
So in your career and everything that you've done in your life, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
You said the proudest of?
Yeah.
I would say being able to get up on the platform and speak about what I believe in unapologetically, right? And it takes a lot of nerve to do what I do, because what I do is not popular, not right now. It's growing and it's coming back, right? So the traditional way, indigenous, I say African traditions, but it's really indigenous spirituality. It is growing and it is coming back into the mainstream, but it's not there yet. And so it took a lot of bold action, especially to do it when I did it, to step up to the stage and say, this is what it is. I'm okay with what I do. I'm okay with people ostracizing me for what I do, because I believe in what I do.
There's so many things that we can learn from history, and from the history of from the African spirituality aspect. And I have a quick story. I have a jazz radio show, and I interviewed the great Dr. Randy Weston, who was a wonderful jazz pianist, very spiritual. I remember getting off the phone with him, and I was just like, this cat is not from this realm. Like I was infused with this feeling that it's been very rare. There's been, Dr. Lonnie Smith was one, Sonny Rollins was one. There was musicians that just have this, they're on a different plane. And I remember at one point Randy was talking to me about going to Africa on pilgrimages. He was regular about going back to the continent. And at one point, he was explaining why jazz swings. And he said, when you go to Africa, everything swings. The elephant tail, the limbs on trees, and it was just like the curtains parted. Like this art form that has been something that has been kind of homogenized by American culture that came from Africa. He completely explained how the etymology of that art form became what it was, why it swings. And it still to this day is one of the most revelatory things that anybody has said to me. It was like, it just like the hair went up on my back when he explained it to me. And he was much more eloquent, but he really took the continent and like translated it into this art form that has really evolved as kind of this American art form. It was very interesting. Um, so let me ask you this. Everyone out there has a perception of you: family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I would say I am a spiritual being having a human experience, to put it simply. So my spirituality is everything to me. And I approach everything in life from a spiritual perspective. I don't just see water pouring, for instance, and just say, okay, it's just water. This is something that we drink.
Yeah.
No, I connected to the spiritual elements of who I am, who we are as a people group, and how when a society, I shouldn't say people group because I'm not just referring to African people here, but societally, like we're all intermeshed, and that water is more than just something that we drink to hydrate us. Right, physically, it hydrates us spiritually as well, and it gives us so many different dynamics. And I look at myself from that perspective. Like I'm always trying to figure out the meaning, the purpose, similar to what you were saying in your example as to how the jazz artist saw everything, the jazz music rather, in perspective of African culture,
Yeah.
like how all of it intermeshes together. And that's kind of me. Like I look at things from a very deep level, meaning I don't do surface things like, oh, we're just gonna go and do this ritual, or, oh, I'm just, because drinking water at the end of the day is a ritual, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna just do this, but I'm going to understand how it works holistically with my being, with my family, with my community, with society at large.
So if anyone wants to take that step and reach out, they have questions, they want to hire you, they want to learn more, find their destiny, any of the good business, where's the best place for them to go?
Asanee44.com. That's my website. It has everything there with my social media contacts, and I definitely encourage people to go there, right, so that they can know that they're going to the right place, the right links, or where have you, with all the scams and frauds today. But that's the best place to reach out to me.
Okay. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful day. I appreciate it.
Same here. Take care.
Thank you.